Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today we'll start the Zevachim daf Chaf. We're going to begin on Chaf Amud Aleph, the second line from the top. So in yesterday's daf, we were discussing when it comes to Kiddush Yadav Raglav. If a person washed their hands and feet, a Kohen did, and they did it during the day, and they continued to do the avodah all day, so he said, Ein Sarach HaKadosh B'Layla. They don't have to rewash at night. However, when it comes to B'Layla, if let's say they were doing the avodah at night, Sarach HaKadosh B'Yoyim, then they have to rewash their hands according to Rabbi during the day. That's the opinion of Rabbi. Why? Because he says, Lina Mo'eles B'Kiddush Yadav Raglayim. So, which means that Lina, the overnight, causes the requirement for you to have to rewash your hands. Rabbi Shimon says, Ein Lina Mo'eles B'Kiddush Yadav Raglayim, which therefore means if you were doing the avodah the whole night, in the morning you do not have to wash your hands. Okay. So with that said, says the Gemara, Kias Rav Dima Amar Rav Yochanan, Boy Ilfa. So Ilfa posed the following question: L'divrei ha'omer, according to the one who says that Ein Lina Mo'eles B'Kiddush Yadav Raglayim, that when it comes to, again, you're doing the avodah all night, and according to Rabbi Shimon, you would not need to rewash your hands in the morning, because the fact that it was overnight does not cause you to have to rewash, so you can just keep doing the avodah without having to go further. Now, mekior, the water which is found in the laver, mahu shivslu, what is the din regarding that? Will that passel overnight? Miamrina and hani, these waters, what is the purpose of these waters? The whole purpose of the mekior is for a person to be able to wash their hands and feet. So Kiddush Yadam Raglayim Gufayu Apostle Behulina, according to this opinion, we said that if you're doing the whole avoda the whole night, you do not have to wash again. So therefore, there's obviously no issue with the water that's found in the mekior, in the laver. So Rashi says, what is this talking about? Imlo shoka babor. What they used to do is they would submerge this laver each night into a pit, and that was what was necessary for it to kind of not take upon itself this potential issue. But let's say they didn't do this, so perhaps it's not an issue. Just like you don't have to rewash your hands, so there's nothing wrong either with the mekior. Alternatively, when it comes to the mekior, it's different. Says Rashi, it's not comparable to, okay, fine, you don't have to rewash your hands and feet, but shamayim nigvu, when it comes to the water that's on your hand, those waters have already dried up. So there's no reason to say that if you did the avodah all night, that mayim there should be any lina on that water, because there's no water in your hands anymore. It's all dried. Mashenkin, in the mekior, it's filled with water. So maybe in fact it is a problem. So Kiyas Rabbi Yomi Rabbi Ami Rabbi Yochanan Hadar Pashit Ilfa. So Ilfa finally came up with an answer, and he said like this, quote, Kamachlokas bezu, kach machlokas bezu. Just as we mentioned in yesterday's daf, we just started off with, there's a machlokas whether or not, if you did the avodah at night, whether you have to rewash your hands again, because of the question of whether you hold linas mo'eles b'kiddush yadav raglayim. That will be the exact same machlokas regarding the mekior. So therefore, it's a machlokas. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak bar Bisna, Rebbe ata oimer kain. You wish to say this, I actually heard it in the name of Ilfa, not like this, that Kior Shoshiku Mib-Erev, if you have this Mekior, this laver, which was not submerged into the pit at night, Mekadosh Mimenu Avodas Laila, so we say that you could be Mekadosh with it for the avodah at night. However, you can't use the cistern in the next morning. Apparently, we see that this is something that everyone holds to be considered to be problematic. So Vavinan boy asked the question, well, Machrein Makadish, what does it mean that tomorrow it's not sanctified? It means Deloit Sarach L'Kedushe. Does it mean that you don't need to Makadish your hands? Like Rabbi Elazar Rav Shimon said, that because you're already doing the avoda and the mikdash, it's not gonna. The low possible lina b'mikdash b'kiddush, and therefore you don't have to worry about it. Odilma ifsu b'lina. Maybe what we're saying is no. The mamish is possible. The fact that it went overnight without it being submerged. The little Pashin one, he didn't answer this question. Umarka Pashin Umarka Pashile Mishit, and you're trying to come up with an answer. Says Rashi, Umar Pashin Mishit Rabbi Elazar will pasulina. So how could you tell me that necessarily it's the same machlokas that we'd hold that just like it won't pasul regarding Kiddush Adam or Glam, that you don't have to rewash your hands the next morning, so too by the Meikir is not a problem? How do you know that's the case? So Tashma, Ben Katin, so it's brought down in Masechtas Yoma, numerous inventions that were created in the Beis HaMikdash. So also Shneim Aser Dad Likir. He did something so people wouldn't have to wait around. He made 12 different openings, spouts, if you will, for the water to come out simultaneously to allow 12 Kohanim that are Isaac in the Talmud to be able to wash at the exact same time. Avu Isa Muchni Lakir. He also made this type of contraption, this like wheel, for the laver, Shloyu Memav Nifsalan Belina, so that it should not be possibilina. So we see clearly that this wheel's purpose was in order for it to submerge into the pit, so it does not become possibilina. Says Rashi, Lafikach, that's the reason why, therefore, Mashkian Oiso Arvis Babor. At night we put it and submerge it into a pit. Shumema Mechubarim L'Mehamein. This is a very important Rashi. So what's the difference that's in the pit? Because now the water in the laver is attached to the water that's in the spring. Ubatla Linatain. And therefore, because of that, it's like bottle, and therefore it's not considered to be like separated, and therefore that's the reason why it's like attached to the ground. So my love, Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon. Apparently this is like Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon. Says Rashi, I feel Rabbi Elazar Kaimer, the afal gav the posel b'kiddush shenigda moed b'mayim. Maybe the only time he says it's okay, they don't have to rewash in the morning, is because your hands were dry, but not by Mekir. That's the reason why you must put it in through this mechanism in order so it will submerge into the pit. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a problem. Lo, Rabbi, maybe it's only like the sheet of Rabbi, but Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon disagrees and holds that also in that case it's not nifsal belina. I Muhammad a ratio, Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon. I'm going to show you that the ratio is his statement. So Seifa Nam Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon. It must be that the Seifa is also like him. Let's be consistent. It's not Rabbi, it's the same person. How do we see that he quotes something in the ratio? Diktani, ratio. Boloi Eitzel Paroi. So let's say the Kohen comes to his par in order to do the proper confessions with it on Yom Kippur, which is what he has to do, as the pasuk says, "V'chipur ba'adoi." Upar ha'yomed ben ulam l'mizbeach, and his par happens to be situated between the ulam. And you can see a picture below in Rashi. You have the Marav, the west, where there's the Kodesh Kodashim, Kodesh, and then all you see is the Heichel, and then you have the Heichel, and then you have the Ulam. And then outside of it, you see this Mizbeach, and then Safain is the north. So we know that certain karbanos must be shechted in the north. The question is, what constitutes the north? So he says, if you have the animal, which is Oimid ben Ulam and Mizbeach, between the Ulam and the Mizbeach, in that space in between, Mizbeach Roisha L'Darim, and to the Mizbeach, his head is to the south, Upanav L'Marav, and his head L'Mizrach, Roisha L'Darim, Upanav L'Marav, V'Kayin his head is in the west. The kohen oimid b'mizrach. The kohen is standing in the east. Upana b'marav, and toward the west. So man shamalei the oimer ben ha'ulam mizbech safain. Apparently, this is saying this is acceptable because it needs to be done in the north. So who says that from the ulam to the mizbech is also considered to be north, even though it's not all the way north? It's kind of like in the middle. Rabbi Elazar Rav Shimon. That's only like Rabbi Elazar Rav Shimon. Nesanya. Ezut safain. What constitutes the north? Mikir mizbech, from the wall of the north, of the east, of the wall rather of the mizbech. Tzafoini, the northernmost part of the mizbech. So again, obviously the mizbech is big. Part of it is toward the south, but the part on the other side, which is toward the north. So from that point, v'ad kaisel azara, until the kaisel of the azara, tzafoini of the north. All of that is considered to be the north. U'keneged kol mizbech kulo tzafoin. And actually, the entire Mizbech is also considered to be Tzafain Divrei Rav Yossi Rav Yehuda. That's Rav Yossi Rav Yehuda's Shita, that he includes all of that space from the Mizbech to the Tzafain and the Mizbech. However, as Rav Shimon Moisif, he adds and says, Af Ben Ha'ulam Mizbech. Also, between the Ulam and the Mizbech is also considered to be Tzafain. Rabbi Moisef, the Rabbi adds, Av Makam Drisas Ragli Kohanim, Umakam Drisas Ragli Yisrael. So you can see in this picture on the east side, but this is where the Kohanim walk. This is where the Yisraelim walk next to the Shar Niknor, which is on the east side, the special gate which didn't have the same level of Kedusha as other gates, so that the Mitzvah could put his thumbs behind us inside the gates. So that area also constitutes north as well, because again, it's necessary when it comes to certain karbanos of kachik kedashim, they have to be shechted b'tzafain. Now we have these different opinions. What is considered to be north? Avol bein hachalifos. Ulifnim hakomaydim shapasol. Bein hachalifos, which is, you'll see, you have the ulam, and then on both sides of the ulam, or it's called the bein, is the chalifos. And Rashi points out, what does that mean? What is that referring to? Mahu beis chalifos ha'ulam oidif rachbay al roichev ha'hechel tesvav amol etzafon festivav. So the ulam was added in its width, 15 amos north and 15 to the south, that small area on both sides. V'hu nikra beis hachalifos. Shahaya b'kaisel ulam. It was right next to the walls of the ulam room. Miacharav chiloinais. There were windows. Shakohanim matznian sham es sakinehem. They would put their knives there. The sakin kari chiluf. B'loshen Arvi. That was another name of a knife. So Beis Chalifos literally means the house of knives. Fine. And we say that Lav Tzafinu, that's not the north. L'shchitas kachi kadashim. Kivan delo mischazi mizbeach, since it's not clear to the mizbeach. Hasam krinan al yerech. It has to be al yerech mizbeach, and therefore this area everyone holds doesn't work. Okay. Avol min hachalifos lefnim hakomanim shapasel. Now v'tizbra Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon he. So you want to tell me that the safe is Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon, and therefore again that goes back to the question of whether or not the mekir will be puzzle. Belina, Velo Rebbe, not Rebbe, Hashta Rebbe, and Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, Moisif. Now, we see that he's Moisif, Ad Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon, Lo Moisif, so Anan Hakin Kaminan. Isagatatach Rebbe, he, in other words, we said, it's got to be him and not him. What do you mean? We find that Rebbe, you had the opinion of Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon, And then Rabbi even added more. So Rabbi is there too. So like, what does it mean? It can't be like Rabbi because he's mentioned in the Reisha. Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon's in the Reisha, but Rabbi's also there. So what does that mean? So again, V'tiz Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon, he v'lo Rabbi, hashta Rabbi ad Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda Moisef. So ad Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon lo Moisef. So anan hachaminan. If you want to tell me, it's just like the sheet of Rabbi, who again said that when it comes to washing, a person who did the avoda all night, according to Rabbi, he holds laila sarach l'kadosh b'yoyim, because he holds lina is mo'elos b'kiddush adav raglayim. You have to rewash, and therefore that's why by the kiyur also it's the same din. So lukma b'makam drisas ragli kohanim u'b'makam drisas ragli Yisrael, because that's actually what his sheet is, that you could have done it in that area as well. Elomai, Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon, he lukma b'kir mizbeach safaini had kaisel azara safaini, but he said that you could constitute the east, the north rather, from the eastern, from the wall of the mizbeach, the northern part, all the way into the wall. So a lot of times things on Yom Kippur were done because the Kohen Gadol is weak. What does that mean? It says Rashi, Shekol avodos shel Yom Kippurim alav v'tosh kaichai. No one else was allowed to do the avoda on Yom Kippur except for him, the Kohen Gadol. Lahachi mamtinan le lahasam. We make it again easier. He has to enter into the heichel to sprinkle the blood. And therefore we didn't want to make it exceedingly difficult for him. Okay, so again, we don't really have a proof in either direction. Question 9. Heichen hu tzafin hakashal l'shchitas kasha kadashim 3 shitas. So one is connected the northern wall of the Mizbeach. Rabbi Elazar Shimon adds, so the connected the Kirt Safaini, right? Only the northern part of from the northern part of the wall until the, Connected Kirt Safaini shall Mizbeach Bilvad. Right? That's Rabbi Yosi, that he only includes from the Mizbeach to the northern wall. Was Rabbi Shimon adds the Litzad Mariv, the west side, Ben Ulam Mizbeach, that area is also allowed to do. And Rabbi's Moisev Af Litzad Mizrach, not just the west side, but also the east side, Keneged Drisas Kohanim and Drisas Ragloyim. Rashi says, he says, Yisrael Ukahanim, which is an additional 22 amos. Okay. Question TA 30, which I don't have with me. Let's see. Question 1. Didn't do that yet. Okay. Maybe we'll get to it soon. All right. Let's see if I have it over here. Okay. All right, let's keep going. So, Chosh the Kohen Gadol. Rabbi Yochanan, Kiddush Yadav Raglov. You have the Kohen who washes his hands and feet. With Trumas Hadeshin, which is for cleaning up the Mizbeach, the sweeping and the cleaning of the ashes of the Mizbeach. And this is done before sunrise. So, L'machar enu tzarech l'kadosh. You don't have to be mekadosh your hands then either. Shikfar kiddush metchilas avoda, because this is like for the new day, and therefore it's acceptable. So, even though maybe you would hold, if you did the avoda at night, you have to wash your hands again in the morning, but not if you washed your hands already for Trumas Hadeshin, so then it's not necessary. Now, Laman, Ila Rabbi, if it's going to Rabbi who says you have to wash your hands all the time, Ha'imr pasalina. So apparently he would hold you do have to wash in that case. You Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Shimon, you don't. If you did the avoda all night, you can continue to do the avoda for a bunch of days. It won't matter. So Rabbi. Now understand. I thought Rabbi said that you do have to wash. So why over here does he say you don't? Velina durabanan he. Lina is durabanan. So what? Says Rashi, Lina zu shetoyel bekiddush ein mayim b'fanenu midrabanan he. This is only considered to be a din durabanan. The gozer ba, the whole gezerah is shul tizalzel belina. We don't want you to be mazalzel. So the truth is, it's only really a din durabanan, but it's not a din deraisa, which is why by Trumas Hadeshen, it's not an issue. Okay, fine. And therefore you don't have to rewash. Continuing in the Gemara, that Lina is the Rabbanani. Umaydi the Mikaras Agever Vad Safrul Apostlina. Even though normally the whole night you have to wash your hands in the morning, but when you do Trumas Hadeshen, this is done by the Karas Agever, by the crowing of the rooster, until the morning. It's such a short amount of time. We say little possibilina. We say that it's not going to cause any problems, so therefore it's not an issue. Okay, fine. So there he will agree. Says Rashi, Umayda Rebbe, Shikisha'olu l'kir min abor, when you lift up the kir from the pit, Mikriyas agever shuzman Trumas Hadeshen, the mishum hai porta will pasla. That's not going to passel. Lina b'kiddush. To ask you in shia detaihu dedami kama shekiddush b'yoyim. It's so close to the day, the guy actually thinks like before Trumas Hadeshen, his washing was actually during the day. Fine. Now understand. So he never says you have to wash. Ri devarav. But he will see, according to his opinion, when we're dealing with Tchilas Avoda, which is Trumas Hadeshen, but not Seif Avoda, for example, when it comes to Hector Ivarim. So he will make a distinction and say that it's allowed that you don't have to wash your hands only b'tchilas avoda. For example, for the Trumas Hadeshen. However, when it comes to Seif Avoda, he actually would maybe hold that you do have to wash. You would have to wash your hands. Okay, fine. So Meisvei. Ru'u achav hakohanim shiyarid. So let's say the brothers saw that you went down. The hein rotzu, and they ran. Uva maharu v'kitchi yadei ragleihem in a kir. And they should go, and they went and washed their hands already in the kir. Says Rashi. L'hoitzis hadeshen shemamakam haracha l'tzalku l'tapuach be'emsa hamizbeach v'kol sagadaitach be'kohanim she'avdu kol laila. We're talking about the kohanim who were working all night anyway. And the question is about do they have to wash their hands again? Apparently it says you do have to. If the avoda continues from the night until the day, so apparently this is a kasha. We see clearly that you do have to wash your hands again. So we see the kohanim are going down. They have to, apparently they do have to wash their hands again. Now Bishlam Abaye, I can understand according to Shita Abaye, the Moikamla Kirebi, that he says that it will be like Rebbe, a Rebbe who says you always have to wash your hands. Rebbe, the Mikarsa Gever at Safra Lo Pasalina. Normally, Rebbe is strict that you have to wash your hands the second time. You have to wash your hands again in the morning. But if you already wash your hands before Trumas Hadeshen, so it was so close, so that small amount of time is not. We're not going to say it's an issue. Hamani Rebbe. Hello, Rava, the Michael Rebbe Lezer Reb Shimon. According to him, he says you don't have to wash. So Abul Rebbe Mikuris Gever Ad Safra Pasalina, and according to him, He says even the small amount of time will passel. Hamani, who's he like? Rabbi, according to Rabbi Pasolina, it would be passel. Rabbi Lezer Shimon, ha'omer filu mikan v'anasar yamim v'anasar chakadish. He says you never have to wash. La'olam k'Rebbi Lezer Shimon v'hacham ha'eskinan p'kahani charati. We're talking about new kohanim. So you're right. Normally they would not have to wash, but over here we're talking about new kohanim, so they have to wash. Iboilhu Yitzia mahu shetoyel b'kiddush yadayim v'raglayim. Let's say the kohen leaves the azara. Does it help the fact that, as Rashi says, Kader shepasul b'chol hakadshim shekidsh b'kli sharis she'im yotzum nifsom b'yaitze. There's an iser yaitze. You can't leave our items, so maybe you can't leave yourself, and therefore can passel. Im tipsel lemer lina lo pasla. If you want to tell me that lina doesn't passel, dully pirish because you never left, right? You were doing the avoda all night, so now you can continue without washing. Oviyatzia the pirish, here you did leave. Maybe you have to wash again because you had hesachadas, because you left. Since you have the ability to always come back, so there's no hesachadas. Therefore, you don't have to rewash. Tashma kiddush yadav raglov. You wash your hands and feet. V'nitmu, and then your hands became tameh. Matbilin, then you are do toivel in the mikvah, but only your hands. V'intzarach kaddish. You don't have to do more than that. Yatsa, once you leave, harhein b'kedushasan. You are in the state of its kedusha. So what does that mean? So we see clearly when a person leaves, it doesn't matter. No, yatsu yadav loika miboilan. If you're just talking about his hands went out, so you're right, that's not considered to be an issue. Kika miboilan yatsa kol gufa. We're talking about where the whole body went out. So that is obviously different. So tashma shlo ruach hasiyadim raglayim mekadesh b'kli sharis b'fnim. Someone who did not wash his hands and feet can be mekadesh them with a kli sharis inside. Kiddush b'kli sharis b'chutz. Let's say you're mekadesh with a kli sharis outside. Or b'kli choil b'fnim. We use a kli choil inside. Oh, shetovel b'meimara. You're a tovel in cave water. The abed avodaso psula. In all these cases, it is pasul. Fine. So taima the kiddush b'kli sharis m'buchutz. The reason is because you're mekadosh b'kli sharis outside. How kiddush b'fnim v'yatza avodas kshera. Mashma, if you did the kiddush yadayim inside, then you left, it would still be a good avodah. You don't have to rewash. No dilma kiddush b'kli sharis b'chutz heichidami. What is this case outside? Kigoin the apik yodav labar. You stuck your hands out. The kiddush and you wash them. Ha kiddush b'fnim v'yatza apik yodav labar kshera. The whole question is if your whole body went out. If a person left outside the mechitza of the azara, if you tarried there, you need mamash tefillah. It was a short amount of time, so we see clearly that you do have to do it. You went there to defecate, or to urinate. So when it comes to that, then you definitely have to wash again. That's not what we're talking about over here. So one second, we already knew that. If you defecate, you need mamish tefillah. If you urinate, you have to wash your hands and feet. So yeah, so what? So it was mentioned, but we said it again. So the hands is definitely no question. It's only, again, where the whole body went outside. The question is, then do you have to rewash? That's the whole question. Let's look at question 10. Koyin she'ira lo tuma, be'ez oifim shita do etzarech shuv lekadesh. So if all he did was stick out his hands, he definitely doesn't have to do it again. Be'ez oifim shita de sarch kiddush, if you went to the bathroom. Be'ez oifim iboya, nitma kol gufo boy Lamevid Erev Shemesh Pshita Boy. Okay, it's a different answer we didn't see. That you still need Erev Shemesh, but Benitma Samach Shkiyas Achal. Okay, we didn't finish this. Tashma. Okay, we have to keep going. Tashma. Para. When it comes to, as Rashi says, Be'avoidis Paraduma. When it comes to the avodah which Shahib Chutz Yerushalayim. When it came to the Paraduma, which had the status of Bedek Abayis, in which unusually Shchit, which is usually kosher bazar, is not kosher by Para, it was done outside Bahar Mishcha on Mount Olives. So Rabbi Chiyab Rav Yosef Oimer Mekadesh B'Kli Sharis B'Fnim, you Mekadesh your hands in the Kli Sharis inside, the Yotzei, and then you go out. So what do we see from here? Alma will possibly Yitzih B'Kiddush Adem Reglayim. It obviously it doesn't cause any problem. You don't have to rewash. Even if you wash outside, b'kli choil, b'afilu b'mekida shelcheres, even an earthenware vessel, the din is the same. So we see clearly that by the din of a paraduma, whether or not we can learn from a paraduma, that it says clearly that Mikadosh b'kli sharis b'chona v'yoytze. So it says beferish this din. So Amar Papa Shani Para Hoyel v'chol Maseh b'chutz. Everything is done outside when it comes to the Paraduma. Will possibly Yitzia. So obviously Yitzia is not going to passel in that case. But that's different because Paraduma is outside, so therefore going outside is not going to passel for you to have to wash again. But when it comes to the vote inside, maybe you do have to do it again if you left. Yachi Lamali and Makadish. So what is this notion of requiring to sanctify your hands? Ke'en avoida pnim, because it is ke'en the avoida of the inside. Fine, to demonstrate some distinction. Iboilhu tuma mahu shetoyel l'kiddush shadavar glayim. When it comes to tuma, does that help regarding kiddush shadavar glayim? So what does that mean? Im tim salam yitzil pasla. If you want to tell me that the fact that you left outside, we went outside, that doesn't cause you to have to rewash. So the gavra chazi, it's because the Kohen could go right back if he wants, and that's the reason why maybe he doesn't have to rewash his hands. Of a hacha, where he's tamei, the gavra lo chazi, since he's tamei, he can't just go back. So asuchi matzach daite, maybe he has hesach hadas, and if he has to wash again, or dilma kivan the hader chazi, since he could easily get himself better again by going to the mikvah, dakle v'loit sach daite, and therefore he's not masiach das. Tashma kiddush baraglov, he washed his feet, hands, everything. Benitmu, and he became tamei. Matbilin, he has to be toivel. Then sarach kaddish, he doesn't have to wash his hands. Nitma yadav, so nitma, as we said before, nitma yadav boiling. If he was just washing his hands became tamei, just like your hands are out. That's not a question. Ki miboilon nitma kol gufa, his whole body became tamei. So kol gufa typically kivan the boy lamevid erev shemesh. If his whole body is tamei, he needs erev shemesh, so he has to wait a bunch of hours until the sun goes down. So they certainly should be hesach das. So he became tamei right before shkiyas achama, and therefore that's the question. So let's say his body was tamei, and he needs erev shemesh. It could be a long time before his sunset. So then certainly he'll have to wash his hands and feet. However, if he became tamei right before shkiyas achama, that's where it's a question. Tashma para Rabbi Chiyab Yosef Yomer Mekadesh b'Kli Sharis b'Fnim v'Yotzin. You go out. If Yochanan Mafil b'Chutz v'Fil b'Kli Chol, Yafilu b'Mekida Shelcheres. Right, even a earthenware vessel. So we continue to Chav Aleph Amud Aleph. Now the para, when it comes to the to a paraduma, the tamui metaminan le, we actually will make the Kohen tamei. Ditnan metamin hayu hakayin asyrif. That's a part. The one who's going to burn the cow, we actually make him tamei. Umatbil noiso, and then we have him go to the mikvah, even though technically you need erev shemesh. But lohaitz malim shel sadukim shel emrim b'marvi shemesh ha'isa. So normally we would want to wait until erev shemesh, but that's the process of the sadukim, because our pasuk says to imply that even someone who is somewhat tahar, but not completely tahar, is still able to engage in the process of the parduma, which is against what Tzedukim say. The Tzedukim say a Tful Yoim cannot engage in the process of the parduma, but we hold it is allowed, and therefore we actually will make him tameh in order so that we could demonstrate that a Tful Yoim goes to the mikvah and he doesn't have the Erev Shemesh yet, he can still engage with a par. Shema Minah, what do we see from all this? That lo pasul ba machshavas tumor, maybe not machshavas, that we don't see that just because he became tameh, that became pasul. Says Rashi, Achar kiddush zeh kenanan v'tfil zu bar mishcha haisa v'hachi tanan mesechtes para v'yachat tfilaso, after he gets immersed, miyad hu mesader marach v'sarfta, he prepares the offering and he burns it. Alma achar kiddush hazeh haisa, after that washing, shema minu l'pasul atoma. So shani para hoyel the tful yoim will pasul because that tful yoim doesn't pasul, so we're lenient over there. So yachi lamuli de mekadish. So then why do you have to wash your hands? Ke'ein avoda be'inan. It has to be ke'ein avoda, and that's the reason why we do so. Okay, we'll stop there. Let's maybe see another question. TA1, no, TB1 has got to be. Madul Rav Yochanan sarach l'shakeh hakior miboid yoim v'har b'lav hachim olon oisul l'trumas hadeshen l'trumas hadeshen. Perish Rashi. So this is Daf Chaf. I think I got the question wrong. Let me see, do I have the actual answers here? I wish I did. So I wrote Gzeira imlo asadze, that if they do not submerge it, v'lo shakeh b'shas trumas hadeshen, yesh psul shalina ala kior. I'm not sure if that's the correct answer. We do have over here the din d'Rabbanan. Lina zu shetoyel b'kiddush she'en hamayim b'fanenu m'Rabbanan he de gazerwa shel tilzel belina. Okay, Adkan.